almost a year ago, I was in your spot looking for the perfect laptop to last at least 4 years of university. And after a lot of research, I finally bought a laptop, and a year later, I think it's one of the best laptops you can buy as a student. In fact, it's so good that you can argue it's gotten better since it came out. So the older it's gotten, the better it's gotten. Now, before I tell you exactly which laptop I'm talking about, we need to have a criteria, a checklist based on which we can evaluate pretty much any laptop. So I think the perfect laptop for students has to be light and thin, has to be fast and responsive, has to have really good battery life, should also charge fast ideally. It should work with all kinds of apps that you are going to use. And it should also be easy to use. The user experience should be good. But most importantly, it has to be a budget-friendly laptop. With that being said, let me introduce you to the M1 MacBook Air. This is the laptop that I think is the best for students today. Now, for a laptop that was launched back in 2020, to say that this is the best laptop for students is a pretty bold statement to be making. But that's why I defined the criteria so that I can tell you, here's why this laptop is so good. When it comes to portability, this is pretty much as good as it gets. This laptop is very thin, very light. At just 2.8 grams, it's incredibly portable, and it's 13.3 inches diagonally. So that's the size of the screen, which makes this laptop very easy to use pretty much anywhere. So you know those tray kind of things in seats in lecture halls, this will easily fit on that. So it's very versatile in terms of where you can work with this laptop. It's also built very well. It has aluminum everywhere, and it feels like a premium laptop. Now, in terms of the screen, it has 227 pixels per inch, so it's pretty sharp. It also gets fairly bright, goes all the way up to 400 nits of brightness, which doesn't sound like a lot because nowadays we have phones with like 1200, 1600s, and even like 2000 nits of brightness. So 400 doesn't sound like a lot, but in reality, it's not that bad because if you think about it, you won't be using this laptop outdoors a lot. 90% of the times you will be using this inside. If I haven't had any problems, you won't either. The screen also happens to be color accurate. So maybe you are in a photo or video editing major, then you can totally use the screen for a little bit of color correction. In fact, I have used this exact screen for color correcting several videos that are on this channel. And it is a 60 Hz panel, which I think will be just fine for 95% of the people who are watching this video right now. Now, this laptop isn't perfect. There are some small problems, but they're not significant enough to not recommend this laptop. For example, the selfie camera is not the best. In fact, it's probably one of the worst things about this laptop. It's a 720p camera. It works and it gets the job done for most of the things, but the bezels around the screen are also not the nicest thing about this laptop. Honestly, it's just a design thing and it doesn't affect functionality anyway, so it's not as big of a problem as the camera, for example. Other than that, the mics and speakers are pretty good. It has a headphone jack, so that's nice. And it has 2 USB-C ports. It would have been nice to have a little bit more ports, but again, as a student, you should not run into any problems with that. And I am speaking from experience, but the keyboard is very nice. It's nice to type on. The trackpad is fantastic though. This is a MacBook after all, and MacBooks are known to have some of the best trackpads. It's made out of glass. It's nice and big. The haptics are amazing. It's great. Just like Squarespace, the sponsor of this video. In this day and age, it doesn't really matter what profession you're in. Having an online presence, a good online presence, can be the key to getting your next client or the dream job. And Squarespace makes it incredibly easy for you to do that. For example, you have pre-built templates to get started with a website in literally minutes, and then you can drag and drop things to be done in a couple of hours. I've done this myself, so I know what I'm talking about. And then you can use the built-in SEO tools to reach your target audience. And then you can start running email marketing campaigns or even build a complete online store all within Squarespace. There's a reason why they call it the all-in-one platform. And you can do so much more. The list is endless. But don't take my word for it. Visit squarespace.com/Spixel and check it out for yourself. Start your 14-day free trial and get 10% off your first purchase. The link's below. And now, back to the video. Now, this being a MacBook runs macOS, obviously, but that's where things get a little bit muddy. So especially for engineering students, macOS typically isn't the best option. Based on my research, there are programs that you guys will be using that aren't supported on macOS. I have personally ran into one situation in which we were asked to use a software that is not supported on macOS, but they already knew about that and they allowed people with Macs to use a different software. So in my case, it wasn't a huge problem, but for others, that might be a big problem. But if you know that macOS will be fine for your program, then great news, because this will be just fine for you. In fact, it won't be just fine, it will be really good, because when it comes to performance, this is where this laptop really shines. The M1 chip inside this laptop makes it a very, very powerful machine. To put it simply, you can throw pretty much anything at this laptop and it will just do it without a problem. I'm talking about things that a typical student would do on a laptop. I'm not talking about any kind of heavy, very intensive tasks like very intensive video editing or 3D modeling or stuff like that. Not that kind of stuff, but like browsing. You could have like 70 tabs open and Microsoft Excel open at the back on Microsoft Word open. I have used this laptop in that kind of scenario, and there were like 2 to 3 times when it was acting a bit weird, but other than that, not really an issue. And this is the base model M1 MacBook Air, so it has 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes storage. And based on my experience, this configuration should be just fine for majority of you. Now, when it comes to battery life, this is as good as it gets. The official battery life for this laptop is 15 to 18 hours. But since this laptop is 4 years old now, you can't really expect to get the same anymore. But even then, from my experience, this laptop still lasts all day, sometimes even 2 days. If you think about it, you will not be using this laptop for 7 hours nonstop. You may be at your campus for 7, 11 hours, but you will use this in total for maybe 5 hours, maybe 6. Even if it's 7, then it should still last a day comfortably. But yeah, with my experience, the battery life is great. I've never had any issues. I just charge this thing whenever I see the battery is low. I never really worried about it too much. This laptop can also charge fairly fast. However, the charger it comes with is pretty big and bulky for the amount of power it provides. So that is one thing I will recommend you to invest in, a smaller charger, but one that is just as fast. I'll leave links to some chargers that I use myself and can recommend all day. So check those out. Okay, now the most important thing is the price. At the time of recording this video, although Apple doesn't sell one brand new, you can still get it from Apple refurbished. And there you can get it for 1,000 Canadian dollars. However, on sites like eBay, you can even find this for 600 to 700 Canadian dollars. So if you split the cost over 4 years, you're looking at between $100 to $250 per year. And the older it has gotten, the cheaper it's gotten, but the performance hasn't declined in the same way. So this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is hands down one of the best, if not the best laptop for students today. Now, I do want to make one thing very, very clear to you, is that I made this video saying that I used this laptop over and over again. However, in reality, I used a slightly different laptop, specifically this one, the M1 MacBook Air. The only difference between these two laptops is that this has a touch bar, it has a fan inside, and a slightly different design. Other than that, this has the same chip inside, the same amount of RAM, the same storage. Everything is exactly the same. In fact, the battery life on this laptop is even better than this laptop. But I can totally recommend this as well. The M1 Air is just a bit cheaper than the Pro. So although I said everything about this laptop based on the experience I had using this laptop, it doesn't really matter because, again, they are very, very similar. I just wanted to make that clear so that you don't think this video was misleading or anything like that. Now, if you are a student, make sure to watch this video next because this is where I talked about my everyday carry as a student. So I'm sure you're gonna like this video as well. So I guess I'll see you there.